Sorry, I like to do things a bit differently here. I should let you know, about 12 months ago something happened that really did change my life, which now means I struggle with both aspects of stand-up comedy, the standing up and the comedy. Sorry, I probably should start at the beginning. For anybody that was wondering, that was me reading. Oh, fuck it! Fuck, the floor's far away. So for anybody that was wondering, that was me reenacting my own birth. If my mother was in the audience, she would have screamed out, "You're a fucking liar, you were born by cesarean." But that's really difficult to reenact. As I said, 12 months ago I had my hip replaced, so it has had to fundamentally change the way that I do my act. For anybody that's wondering, because I seem to have people coming up to me all the time saying, like, my nan had her hip replaced and she was up and walking that afternoon playing tennis. And doesn't that make me feel good? But the only consolation I've got is I've got a handicap sticker, which is the most redundant thing in Woi Woi. Like, the only time that is going to be handy is if they reverse the ratio of handicap spaces to normal spaces. Like, I'm currently competing for 3 spaces with people that look like they should have gotten out of hearses. Like, the other big complication I have, so after the hip replacement, I have, my major issue is a thing called lymphedema, and you've probably seen this at Deepwater Plaza on a mobility scooter. You know those people with just one enormous leg? That's what happens when you leave it untreated. So I have to wear this wonderful, sexy stocking. And I really don't think that my physiotherapist was prepared to deal with a stand-up comedian. Because before she fitted me for the stocking, she said, "Do you have any style ideas?" And I said, "Yes, red fishnet." Just to offset my dolphin tattoo. So the other problem is that there's 2 things that they can use to treat the issue that I have, one of which is the stocking that I wear. The other one is massage, which sounds great except for the 2 areas in which I get the swelling. So one of them, I get a J-Lo booty by about 3 in the afternoon, and the other one is just beside my groin on the left. And my biggest issue is my physiotherapist is not an unattractive lady. And usually she's like, "Do you mind if the student pracky sits in?" "Yeah, of course, why wouldn't I want you to do that?" And midway through she's like, "How's the swelling?" I go, "No, I've got self-control." "Oh, you mean the left?" And then afterwards she's like, "Do you notice any improvement?" I'm like, "My times tables have really come along." But aside from comedy, I suppose probably the weirdest thing that I've had is some of the jobs that I've had to pay my way through life. Like my first job in high school, I worked in a pharmacy, helping them fill prescriptions. And the first little old lady that came in and pissed me off, I put her arthritis medication in a child-proof bottle. When I got to university, I used to work at the Botanic Gardens, tending the cactus garden, and they actually fired me for showing initiative. I invited the local blind school for an Easter egg hunt. Probably the weirdest combination of jobs that I had, I used to work as a clown at kids' parties on weekends, but by night I worked as a bouncer outside of pubs and clubs kicking people out. And eventually through sleep deprivation you mix the 2 jobs up. But that's where I really, I learned things. Like, it's incredible. You would not believe how much drunks love balloon animals. And how much kids hate being punched in the face. Aside from that, when I growing up, the next sort of weird job I had, I worked in the car industry for many years. I was a car salesman, so it's okay to hate me. Matter of fact, working in the car industry, it's a really depressing industry. I got so depressed, I took my car, I hooked the hose up to the exhaust pipe, I put it in through the driver's window, I started the ignition. 9 hours later, I was sitting there regretting buying a Prius. But at the moment, probably the weirdest job I have, I work in the funeral industry, which means you guys could be having no fun at all, and you're still having more fun than my normal audience. And it's great because I work in the funeral industry on the Central Coast. When things are quiet, I just run through a nursing home with a cap gun. It is particularly hard as a stand-up comedian to try to keep my mouth shut when I'm dealing with families that are grieving. Like, I was burying a 33-year-old carpenter that died on Good Friday. And I was meeting with the family the day after he died, and all I kept thinking is, "Don't worry, in a couple of days this will all turn around." I did a funeral for a clown. I opened with "He leaves behind enormous shoes to fill." But yeah, aside from the weird jobs I've had, probably the thing that's led me down the path of comedy has been my relationships. Like, for many years, I went out with a woman that could best be described as Satan's retirement plan. I got her a mood ring because I thought it would be an early warning device. It was going really well until the sister had an epileptic fit. Matter of fact, when I was in that relationship, my favourite thing to do would be to go to IKEA and just see people whose relationships were in a worse state than mine. Like these people pushing that awkward trolley out of IKEA with a 1,000-yard stare of a returned Vietnam vet. You wouldn't believe the shit I've seen there. You weren't there. You don't know. Like, I'm pretty sure IKEA is the Swedish word for domestic violence. Like, if IKEA hadn't existed 2,000 years ago, the Romans probably should have used that to punish Jesus Christ. Could you imagine him dragging a flat-pack crucifix through Jerusalem? Gets to the top of Golgotha, spends 4.5 hours trying to assemble a freaking thing, because for no apparent reason the instructions are in Swedish. Only to realise at the end of it all, he's a nail short of being a Christian icon. But aside from that, like, so when I got out of this horrible relationship, I tried doing a lot of really weird things to try to meet women. Like, I worked at Lifeline, which was great. I got 3 dates out of it, which means when compared to suicide, suddenly I don't look like such a bad option. You know, there were 4 women that jumped, but you know, oh, look, without X. Aside from that, I tried my hand at internet dating, which is one of like the mainstays of stand-up comedy. So I was chatting to this girl up late, and she said, hey, why don't we meet up? We'll meet at a bar at Chats. And so I've ended up going off to this bar at Chats, and I'm sitting down, and suddenly, this thing sits down in front of me, and all I kept thinking is like, some maniac has taken that woman's skin and wrapped it around a fridge. And then that voice, you know, the little voice in the back of your head when you're about to fuck up that sounds like your mum going, don't do something that horrible, she's probably lovely. Just give her a go. So I'm sitting there and she's telling me about the medieval society she's a part of and why I'd just love it if I gave it a go. I'm sitting there thinking, I wonder what sort of medical emergency I could fake in order to get out of this. And at that point, she said something that made me realise women are the superior sex. Like, women, when you go on a date, you know the outcome of that date in the first few minutes, and we're in the dark until the very end. So I was sitting there desperately trying to text one of my friends, and I couldn't hear the beginning of the sentence, but I was profoundly aware that it ended with, and then I got a clit piercing. And suddenly I went from trying to think of sufficient medical emergency in order to get out of there immediately to being willing to walk across hot coals to find out what that would look like. So we ended up back at her place. She's taken everything off me before she's even stopped smiling. Like, and guys, just a tip, if they take everything off you before they've even, you know, undone their hair, it's because they have something to hide and don't want you to run. So I'm standing there, glow-in-the-dark condom, doing my best Darth Vader. Luke, I will not be your father. I see her come in from the bathroom wearing what I could have sworn was a beige wetsuit. Has anybody heard the term controlled garment? Terrifying. She proceeded to peel off said controlled garment and expand like shaving foam. And all I could think is I've missed the real show. Surely watching her put it on would be far more entertaining. Like watching somebody pack a sleeping bag just trying to work it in from the sides. But I have to say I'm happily married now. I'm married to a British woman. Anybody here with a British partner? By show, anybody? Can I tell you, that is the best. Like, if you were single, go out now and find a British person because they crave disappointment. And I give her more than she can handle. So we got married in 2017. My last name's Ferguson, so I did 2 things to try to honour my Scottish heritage. I wore the kilt, so, you know, reflecting the Scottish ancestry, but it served an additional purpose. It kept the flies off the cake. I'll let the half of the room that laughed at that explain it to the other half that didn't. But yeah, my wife, it's interesting now because we've got a little baby at home, and I don't know if it's because of like the baby brain, but my wife now loves to ask me really stupid questions. So she's been at home locked in all day with a 6-month-old, and I get in from work, and the first thing she said to me is, gee, I wonder what it would be like to be a Kardashian. So I did her in the bum and put the video on the internet. So my wife and I, we used to live in the inner west. We've now moved up to the coast, and it was a pretty harsh adjustment, but I managed to find a few things to help ease me into the transition. It was a board game. It was a special edition version of Monopoly. Has anybody seen some of the crazy special editions that they've had? They've had, you know, Monopoly New York, Monopoly Sydney. The new one's great. It's Monopoly Gosford. It's very similar to Monopoly Sydney, except the property prices are much lower. KFC is considered a utility. The little cars up on little bricks. Take a chance is just having unprotected sex. You don't have to pass go to collect $200, you just wait a fortnight. It was sitting on the shelf directly next to the Wyong version of Guess Who. It's called Guess Who Your Father Is. Jeez, it's hard. Thought very long and hard about getting the Vaucluse version of Operational. You have to suck the fat out of a woman's ass and inject it into her tits and lips without touching the sides. They did have an updated version of it. Oh, thank goodness you guys are here. Call off the search, they're here.
Sorry.
Read it. Oh, there you fuck. But yeah, so they had an updated version of an absolute classic. They had a new version of chess. It's the Cronulla version of chess. Don't worry, they haven't messed with it too much. It's still black versus white. There are just no rules. Oh dear. So some of the strange adventures, I'll try to pitter out. But some of the weird things. So Laura, your MC tonight, I actually met many years ago in a wonderful town called Wagga Wagga, because I have a thing for living near places named twice. But I used to work as a security guard when I was down there, which meant that I was working until very late hours. I used to also work at the hospital in Wagga, and then for a week in summer, like it's still 40 degrees. I'm finishing work at 4 in the morning. It's like 36 degrees by the time I get into bed. But I was living in a uni share house. Has anybody had the share house experience where you're renting places that are clearly dilapidated? That like, even people in Gaza would be like, what is this shit?
Yeah, unique!
Yeah. So when we moved in, the landlord had removed all of the blinds and doors from this house. And which is weird because as a uni student I only owned 2 sheets, so I really did have to try and triage as to what I was going to cover, the window or the door. I decided on the door, but what I didn't realise in the time that I was out at work and had been at work all afternoon, one of my housemates got a kitten. So all of the housemates were really excited playing with this kitten all night, but of course we didn't have any doors, so I finally got in. I've gotten into bed. I'm just under the sheet. I'm directly above the main street of Wagga, trying to get to sleep over the top of a traffic light going. Sitting there going, and finally I managed to get to sleep, you know, despite the best efforts of the traffic light, and suddenly I was awoken to the sound of screaming. And what was even more shocking, I discovered it was mine. Because what had happened is this cat had been wandering the halls freely all night and had seen something move under a sheet. Now, I don't know if, has anybody here got a cat? You know what happens when your cat catches something that they want to kill? It's none of this like friendly, like I'm going to smack it like that. It's like, I'm going to get my molars into it and all 4 legs wrapped around. So I woke up, looked down, there's this cat attached to my penis. And as hard as I was trying to pull it off, it just meant that it was digging the claws in more. And suddenly I had the bright idea, I was going to flick it off the sheet like a magician doing the tablecloth trick. So I stood up and gone, fling! Like that, and suddenly in the doorway are all my new housemates standing there as these kittens come flying towards them. I'm standing there naked, blood running down my thighs. And the awkward thing is I ended up at Wagga Base Hospital, which is a hospital I used to work at, and when you've got an injury to a sensitive part of your body, the one thing you want from everybody is professionalism, care and discretion. Do you think I fucking got that? Every single person that found out that I worked with, found out I was on the... I had people coming from the maternity ward to make comment. People walking in, sticking their head around the curtain going, somebody should have told you pussy's rough in Wagga. Somebody handed me a number and I was like, oh, thank God, is this a specialist, a plastic surgeon? They're like, no, it's a flute teacher. He'll tell you how to hold it. Oh, dear. So... one of the other weird things, so being a comedian, I get to travel around. I'll finish up on this story, but many years ago, I was down in Melbourne. I was doing a whole bunch of gigs, but it happened to be around my birthday. So my girlfriend at the time decided it was going to be a special birthday present that she'd give me early, so the day before my birthday, and she gave me chocolate body paint. Has anybody here used chocolate body paint? Anybody here sitting there going, geez, that sounds like a sexy idea? Because you are fucking wrong. Just a word of warning when it comes to chocolate body paint, it leaves a mark on a bedsheet somewhat similar to diarrhea and an epileptic fit. So the next morning, after the deed is done, she's decided to go and get me a special birthday breakfast. I've decided to go and wash what looks like fecal matter off my body. So I'm in the shower, scrubbing away, and I hear noise